You got a friend in Pennsylvania. Where did that come from? Ketchum Advertising introduced the tagline. Yeah. Okay. So it was just like an ad thing for the tourism. And then Newfound Glory has a song. You've got a friend in Pennsylvania.
Oh, that's fun.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
You know what else is Newfound Glory?
What's that?
Hey everybody, welcome back to Pixel It. My name's Kevin. With me as always Phil, and on today's show we are finishing up NieR Automata. Long story short. I can't even figure out what is the right pronunciation. Is it Automata or
I've always
Automata.
said Automata.
Yeah, okay.
But the thing is
I say Automata because I like the rhythm of it.
Well, I've heard NieR Automata basically since it came out, but yeah. I would say
I think Automata is the correct pronunciation. I know Josh gets upset when I say Automata, so I'm going to stay with that.
Yeah, that's good.
Like orally, Automata sounds more bouncy and fun.
Well, it's like
Automaton. Yeah. It
just makes more sense.
I like Balatro. Like over Balatro.
I know. I've noticed that. You have gone back and forth on that one. But
whatever Northern Line says is how I'm
fair enough.
Yeah. So I think that's what I'm going to do. But we left off last time. We finished chapter 7 and we were heading into chapter 8. And boy, there's a whole lot of plot to kind of like wrap up in this last third of the book. So we're going to go ahead and put the body in the marsh.
Let's put it in the marsh.
When I tell you to dump a body in the marsh, you dump them in the marsh.
So we start chapter 8 with 9S having had a dream about what literally just happened.
Yeah.
And him trying to find 2B, only to find her dead by A2's blade. And then he wakes up and he's being cared for by Devola and Popula. They inform him that he's been unconscious for 2 weeks, and Popula informs him that 2B's black box signal is gone. And then his pod tells him he should be grateful of Devola and Popula. Devola informs 9S that most of the Devola and Popula models had been rescinded in the past because they tended to cause problems. 9S runs off towards the white cylinder in the sky that erupted out of the chasm that was formed in the ground. And he's blaming the machines for all the problems in the world and the death of 2B. Since there was no longer any backups for her. The pod surmises that Devola found 9S while on an expedition in the region for specific materials. He gets to the tower, which has an elevator that he can't access, and the tower forces a signal into the pod and his goggles, which tell him where he has to go to get an access key. And he's like, oh, okay, well, these machines are just messing with me. They're making me do a fetch quest. What is this, a video game? So he has to go and get 3 keys from 3 different locations in order to unlock the things on the elevator in order to open it. So he returns to the Forest Kingdom and recalls a conversation he had with 2B about buying her a t-shirt when all the fighting was over.
This was such a funny. This to me was like the most blatantly anime part of the whole thing. This level of like you've got all this heavy stuff, and it goes to this kind of silly memory. It felt very anime to me. It was so weird.
Hey 2B, can I buy you a t-shirt when this is all over?
I suppose.
Anyway, yeah, while he's thinking about this, he's killing machines, the machines that are around. He finds the thing. It's like a floating dome in the sky called a resource recovery unit. And it's gathering resources for the cylindrical tower. And there's like text written on it. And on this one, it's called the Meat Box.
Oh, yes. Yeah, the Meat Box. Which I immediately, when you were talking about how it wasn't well localized, I was like, is that part of it? Like, I have to wonder.
Is this part of it? Well, what was funny is I was playing NieR earlier, and there was a scene that we read in the book that plays out in the game, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, the book is terribly localized. Like, it's better localized in the game. And from what I understand, that even the game is not as well done as it could have been.
Right.
But it's way better than what the book was.
Right. That's, yeah. If anything, this book has convinced me that I really do need to play this game.
Yeah. Okay. So he goes inside and starts killing all the machines that are inside, and he's getting more and more agitated with each machine that he kills because they just won't shut up. The floating core of the resource recovery unit has the voice of a child, and it says that it's scared, but 9S don't care. He has the pod fry the core, and he takes the key, and there's 2 more RRUs to go. Next, he goes to the flooded city, and along the way, he finds 2B's remains. An unsent transmission is with her body, apologizing to 9S. And after a moment of grieving and realizing how much he hates the machines, he carries on and finds the next resource unit. And this one is called the Soul Box. First one was the Meat Box, and now we're at the Soul Box. As 9S explores it, he finds that there are no machines keeping guard, but finds information that the black boxes of the Yorha androids are made out of machine cores. 9S then goes into a memory bank and is counter-hacked, he thinks, at least, and begins messing with his memories of 2B. And then he has a few pages of real weird incel stuff going on.
Yeah. We're
really intense incel stuff.
He's getting real twisted here. And this whole final third is a bit of a heel turn. So
a bit of a heel turn for old 9S.
Old 9S. Old 9S.
He's like, I'm the only one who's allowed to touch her. Right. I'm the only one who's allowed to hurt her.
Like,
and I'm like,
whoa, 9, honey,
buddy, honey, sweetheart,
sweetie, you wanna talk? Your auntie brought you some cocoa, kid. You wanna chat? Something up?
Yeah,
this ain't so great.
And the shadow that is attacking his memories is also 2B shaped. It's a weird moment. Anyway, he fucking he wins. He kills 2B in his memories, or the 2B shadow. And he goes back to the resistance camp after acquiring the second key because his close combat fighting system is messed up, and Devola and Popula fix him up. Then he heads off to the amusement park for the third resource recovery unit. And he begins to think about how he was losing self-control, but at the same time, he didn't care. He approaches the third resource recovery unit, and this one is labeled God Box.
Admittedly, an excellent Journey album.
Yeah. Yeah. As he fights through the machines, his pod is being stubborn about warning him how he needs to not strain his chassis. 9S begins stomping around like a child and is now annoying even himself. As he gets to the roof of the resource unit, he finds that it's being guarded by 21O, his operator. During the fight earlier, when all of the units were being sent down to the surface, 21O had been converted into a B type and took her place on the front lines of the fight. Her consciousness still lingers a bit, even though she's under the machine's control now with the logic virus. And she begs 9S to kill her while they fight. We get
pretty dark.
It is pretty dark.
Fucking dark.
Yeah. We get another side chapter A2, and now this another side chapter is actually this segment of chapter 8 is actually the longest another side that we get. It's from A2's point of view. I know A2, from what I understand, A2 is at some points of NieR Automata a playable character.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So Pod 42 arrives to meet A2 as a final directive from 2B. She eventually relents and lets the pod join her for support. She runs into Pascal wanting to kill him, but then spares him and he flies off. A2 reunites with Anemone. They've been working together during the Pearl Harbor descent attack, which was the first one by the Yorha group at the beginning. And they were the only two left surviving. A2 needs a fuel filter replacement, and Anemone recommends that she talk to Pascal, even though A2 would rather just destroy all the machines. And then we get a bunch of vignettes. Pretty fucked up stuff happens. So it's like A2 slowly warming up to Pascal, and she's like, she and Pascal are like becoming closer and working together more to help each other. And she's like, but I don't want to be in the machine's debt. It's one of those, like, she's like softening basically.
Yeah.
And then one day a bunch of machines turn on each other in the village. Pascal evacuates the children and helps A2 put down the unruly machines. And when they get back, they find out that all the children machines had committed suicide.
Oh, yeah. This whole section is fucking bleak. Yeah, this.
And the last thing A2 does is grants Pascal's request to wipe his memory, so he forgets everything that had happened and leaves. She discusses with the pod how all this might have happened and is thinking that it's the giant tower's fault. And just then she comes upon 9S fighting his operator on top of the research unit and stabs its body several times. And then we cut back to 9S at the beginning of chapter 9. 9S wakes up again. Another chapter, he wakes up from losing consciousness. The resource unit had fallen out of the sky when A2 had killed the operator, and A2 had said something about him, about 2B telling her that he was a kind person, and then the thing falls out of the sky, collapses underneath him, and he gets knocked out. He wakes up. He has the keys, though, to access the elevator in the tower. When he gets to the tower, though, there's a bunch of machines to deal with, and he's having trouble with them while trying to hack into the elevator at the same time. And just then, Devola and Popula show up as backups and begin dealing with the machines. He gets everything set, but there's a security door, and it's not able to be opened without. It's like basically, oh yeah, the security door could be opened if you just self-destruct your black box. And he's like, well, that doesn't help.
That's not really a thing I'm planning on doing.
So he's about to give up when Devola runs in and grabs the security door, trying to like pry it open. And it begins to shock her circuits. And she lets her like personal data run into the system, causing the door to malfunction, and it opens up. And Popula grabs 9S and throws him up through the door. And as he flies through the air and up, it's basically like a gravity lift. He finds residual data from them stuck in the tower. And we get information about their past and how a Devola and Popula unit were responsible for the extinction of humanity. And he realizes that to them, they viewed their death as a way for penance. When he gets to the top of the tower, he is greeted by a bunch of 2B units who have no real programming. And he goes full incel again, and he destroys them one by one until there's only one left. And he stabs it a bunch of times, and then whoops, that one had a detonator in it, and everything goes white.
Womp womp.
Another side, A2. A2, after destroying a Goliath-class enemy, goes to the tower and finds Popula and Devola dying. They have the door still open for her. And as she enters, the pod mentions that the facility is mimicking a library. A2 finds some books about the reason for the Yorha project, which for the Tower project is to launch something to destroy the human network on the moon. And then she finds out information about herself and 2E/B's history as someone who was designated to keep the confidentiality of the Yorha project from 9S. And then she meets the two little girls in red who were a manifestation of the humanoid manifestation of the machine network. They taunt A2 about killing her squad from when they first met. So chapter 10, titled 9S's Story / Truth. 9S wakes up from the explosion, his left arm having been completely blown off. And there is a remaining 2B model, which he rips the arm off of and puts it into his arm socket because he needs an arm. 9S walks into the next room and he sees the two girls that A2 had just been talking to. They taunt 9S and begin unlocking a classified document. To sum up, the Yorha project was planned for obsolescence from its beginning, and that humans died because of an epidemic that they were trying to figure out a way to separate souls from bodies and then put them back into new bodies. And the only guy who knew how to do this was killed by Devola and Popula. So 9S then tries to stab the holograms of the girls. Yeah, so it's really complicated. The only thing is I don't understand the why. So there's this whole thing, there's this Project Gestalt thing, and as it's doing all this info dump, it's like, oh wow, a lot of this sounds similar to Signalis.
Yeah.
Suddenly.
Yeah. There's absolutely that vibe.
Yeah. So a bunch of flight units ultimately attack 9S. He's fighting them off. He gets infected by the logic virus. And then he ends up facing off against A2. And she's like, I'm not going to kill you. But he's like, but I gotta kill you. You killed 2B. And it's not like, I feel like it's like, well, can't you just say that 2B?
Yeah. It's like, you're not gonna. Okay.
Yeah.
Explain things. Okay.
We get more info dump, and it's more or less reiteration about how 2B was actually a 2E, an execution droid, android, and knowledge of the E units was something that it was typically covered up. So whenever 9s or another unit met an E unit, there was no data because their whole entire job was to execute like Yorha androids that are too close to figuring things out, specifically 9S, who is an above average scanner.
And 9S is flabbergasted. Like he really doesn't understand why there would even be an E class unit at that point, which just tells you how deep in the Kool-Aid he is.
Yeah. So there's the way it's written at the end, it makes it seem like 9S is dying / I actually did fight A2 and I killed her. But I don't know if the way it's written is a little bit confusing. Did he actually kill her? Is he just seeing a hologram of her at the end? He's not sure. And now they're in some sort of it's like some sort of circuit dimension thing. And now the twins are like, all right, well, we decided that we're not going to blow up the moon network. We're just going to load up the consciousness of everything we know, and we're going to shoot it out into space. And it doesn't matter how long it takes because time is irrelevant to us. So we're going to load up the data that we have from Adam and Eve and Pascal and everybody, all the machines, and just put it up and we're going to shoot it out into this point in space and see what happens. And they're like, do you want to come with us? And he's like, no.
Yeah, good call.
Good call. So basically, we have examined the unique specimen, Pascal, the unique specimen, King of the Forest, Adam and Eve. We're going to launch it. A2 at this point is just shouting at them like, what are we supposed to be doing here? And then the pod is like, okay, well, the enemy AI has disintegrated, meaning it's just like not there anymore. So yeah, there's a bright white light. And then we get an epilogue, which is just like the pods talking to each other. And they're like, all right, well, our last job was to just like flush all the data of the Yorha project. And eventually they're like, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to destroy the data of our friends. And they realize that this set puts them, the pods that are supporting, so it's the pods that supported 9S and 2B from the beginning. It puts them at odds with the rest of the pods out there. And they're like, well, we developed empathy and we're going to save our friends. And then it ends with, welcome back, 2B.
Okay.
So there's more data. There's more like description as to what exactly the Yorha project was. Mm-hmm. And it was like, it was created and the whole thing was planned from the beginning, and that the war just kept repeating itself. And as it gathered battle data from everything that I was constantly doing, I feel like that we're missing something here.
Yeah. That was exactly how I felt. I felt distinctly confused, but I will say intrigued at the same time. Like, sure. Yeah.
Like, is it that there were never any aliens? I think so. Like,
I think so. Yeah.
I think that's the what we're kind of looking at is there were never any aliens. That was just a false flag thing in order to give the androids something to do against the machines.
Kind of a Watchmen ending, basically.
Kind of like the Watchmen ending. And then I guess, and somebody who knows NieR Automata is probably screaming at the thing right now is like, what's the point of doing all this if you're going to delete it later?
Right.
If that's the plan all along. Is that
the point? Is that what they're trying to say? Or
like, maybe it's about what you choose to do. You know, there's some stuff, and then the machines launch off into space instead of destroying the remains of the genetic remains of humanity, which they also reveal in chapter 9 or 10, I can't remember which, aren't really even enough to bring humans back. Like, the data that they have,
that's all over. That whole thing, that's done. That
whole thing is not worth anything.
It's never going to happen, and just insult to injury on how useless this whole endeavor is.
And all the, so I guess there is like some hope of at least 2B coming back, but 2B or not 2B, I guess that is the question.
Or will we have to consider Pascal's wager?
Yeah, let's Pascal that wager. Phil, what do you think? What was your takeaway?
Okay. All right. This was easily one of the more interesting experiences I've had on this show. Not because I enjoyed the book. I didn't. But clearly something was wrong with the localization. And even if I base this on nothing, but my gut tells me that even if it was localized better, it might not have been a terrific book.
Sure.
At least in terms of just pure entertainment value. What it did do that other books we've read that I haven't enjoyed absolutely didn't, and I've said this before, was intrigue me enough to go to say, there's a cat hair in my microphone. I really should play this game. And I think there's value in that. It shows that it might not have been a terribly well executed book, but it carried through enough of the overarching ideas from the source material that I could see it. I could see what they were going for, at least enough to make me go, okay, I've got to play the game to see what they actually meant, which is not something I generally walk away from one of the books we read when I don't enjoy it and think to myself. So very interesting, very intriguing. What about you? What did you think?
Yeah, to me, it seems like it's trying to summarize. It's trying to cut down like 1,000 pages of story into 250 pages. You know what I mean? I feel like it's really trying to boil down things into the other. So the issue I have with it is it feels like there's a lot of stuff where we are supposed to have stronger feelings about whatever the fuck is going on than we are having while we're reading it. Because a lot of times it's like, 2B is dead. I'm so sad 2B is dead. And I'm like, well, sure. 9S and 2B had a really like a relationship. But the thing is, I don't get any hint of it being anything other than platonic.
Yeah.
For the first 2/3 of the book. And then the last third, it gets into a real weird incel-y 9S is obsessed with her. It feels like
comes
in that way
too.
And it feels very abrupt in the way that it's written. And I'm like, is this part of the localization, or is this like the translation, or is it actually like this in the game? And I feel like it's in the plot of the game.
Right.
Do we have more of a lead into it in the game itself? I feel like A2 is probably, from what I understand about the various endings of the game, A2 is a little underdeveloped compared to 2B and 9S in the book. And it's almost weird, like just shunting her off into these another side chapters. There's just a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah.
It feels like we're blitzing through a story which required, especially with the apparently looping nature of the story when it comes to what 9S and 2B have been through on the surface of the planet, dying and being reborn, and 9S having his memory wiped and all that stuff. It feels like there is more that could have been done creatively with the nature of the narrative that isn't done. And it's very linear compared to, I guess, because the game has multiple endings. There's
like
26,
something, right?
Well, there's 26. Christ. A bunch of them are for, are kind of jokey. Like I got one of them today when I was playing where it's just like you initiate self-destruct while you're on the bunker.
I mean, that's an ending.
And it gives you an ending, and it like plays through the credits of the game and fast forward, and then asks you if you want to load your last save.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
But there's like 5 main endings apparently, and then just 20 or so endings.
Right.
So yeah, like I feel like a bunch of them might have been represented in the text and just missed it, but I don't know. It felt as you said, as to quote Beetlejuice, this reads like stereo instructions.
Yeah. It is so matter of fact and to the point, and it's just hard to enjoy for its own sake, especially because you get the distinct impression that what they're doing is interesting enough that you could believe that the source material must be better, especially when, and in the context of having been involved in video games and knowing how well received that game was. So you kind of assume, you're like, well, it must have been well done in the video game.
Right.
So what's missing here? And it's a shame. There's a delicate touch there that's clearly missing.
Yeah, and what's also interesting is, it made me interested in playing the video game, as you said, just because I was definitely like, I'm missing something. There's like there's some ideas here that I'm interested in seeing fleshed out more. I guess I got to play the game to actually see that happen.
And I don't think they did that on purpose, but
no. The other thing is, though, I know the game itself has its own problems with all of that intrigue being muddled under the fact that 2B wears a skirt which you could look up into, and her top has a boob window. I mean,
oh well, yeah. There is that.
There's that.
There is that. Yeah.
And then when you activate self-destruct for her, all it does is blow off her skirt. So she's running around in her. Yeah. So
well, that's just, I mean, there's a metaphor there.
There's a metaphor there with Pascal and Sartre.
And mutually assured self-destruction exposes the breadbasket, the baby maker of the world, to colossal pain.
Yeah.
And boobies. So so I think that was, I don't know. I feel like it's been a long time since literary analysis, but I feel like I nailed that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to play that game.
Gonna have to play that game. It's yeah. I mean, in the end, really, it's just an adaptation of Waiting for Godot.
Yeah, sure.
And Vladimir is 2B and Estragon is 9S.
Sure.
And they're just kind of waiting for God, being humanity, to show up.
I bet very much that there is a a creative writing nerd in our fandom that is going, he's not far off though, but he's not far off. Like he's just messing around. But
I'm gonna go with Josh is gonna have thoughts. He's the writing teacher.
Please
in the fandom. So I'll throw it to him. Like, what is NieR Automata's? Is it just an expansion on Beckett's work? Anyway, what do you play?
Right into it. I love it. I'm glad you asked.
I was like, I wonder how long I could keep this bit going, but I can't.
Just drag it out like a long, embarrassing fart.
Yep.
I'm glad you asked. I really am. Because I'm still playing Cyberpunk 2077. I am, I think, about 80% done with the main storyline. We were talking last time about the Pan Am character and romancing her possibly. But the more I get into the game, the more I'm pretty sure I'm going to try and, I don't know if it's even possible, I'm going to try and romance River, the detective, because he's handsome and I like his coat.
Okay.
And when I thought about that, I realized that if I were a girl, I would be the one that steals the boyfriend's hoodie. I'd be that one so fast.
Sure.
Because all I could think about was like, well, maybe if I'm his boyfriend, I can
get
have
his
that
coat.
coat. Yeah. And I could really deck myself out in the coat. I'm using him for his fashion sense.
Sure.
Which is real rough when you're taking down a child predator together and you're using them for their coat. That's it's a little dark for a lot of reasons there. But yeah, I'm really still really enjoying that. Just enjoying cruising through Night City. It's a lot of fun. I keep hearing them say NC and assuming they mean North Carolina. That happens a lot. But yeah, really enjoying that one. And I did get to play a demo this week. I played the demo for Foundation.
Okay.
This came out the end of last year. It is a casual city builder. It's like a medieval city builder. Very laid back. It grows in complexity as you go, like a lot of these games. But it's really chill. It has like really freestanding where you put things, you can put them wherever on the map. You don't have to worry about tiles or anything like that. A couple of features I find really interesting. One is that as long as you have enough, in a lot of these games, you have to make sure that you're building houses to keep up with your population. This one, as long as they have enough food to be there and they're working, the houses will get built. And so they kind of organically spring up around the windmills and gathering huts and stuff like that you're building.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
It's nice. It's very pretty. You start getting excited about what it's going to look like as you expand. It takes some of that out of your hands, and I'm fine with that to a certain extent. It's very chill. Like I said, I've only played the demo, and that cut out a lot of things, but it looks like there's a lot of game in there. I played about 3 hours of it on the demo, and I was just scratching the surface of like the research and the island I was on and everything like that. So it looks like there's a lot there. I feel like it would be a very good game for anyone who wants to play something to tide them over until Civ, the new Civ comes in.
Sure, Civ 7.
Yeah,
next month, right?
Yeah. Well, but it'll be right on the cusp of it coming out. Actually, it might be out by the time our next episode goes live.
Okay.
Because I think it's the 11th, something like that. But but on the other hand, if you're not a big fan of the intensity of Civ and how hard it goes after a while, but you enjoy like a game like Dwarf Romantic, for example, which was a city builder, but was super chill. And you could kind of lean back and just play a podcast and really chill out and build a kingdom. This is not that chill, but you know what it is? It's kind of like Banished, but very easy, like way easier than Banished, but it has a lot of the same vibes to it. So I like that a lot. Cause Banished is still one of my favorite games of all time. Really interesting stuff. I think it would be worth at least playing the demo for anyone who likes city builders between now and again when Civ 7 comes out.
Right.
Yeah. So that's been my week. What about you, Kevin? What have you been playing?
I have been playing, other than NieR, I've been playing Ender Magnolia, which is the sequel to Ender Lilies, which came out a couple years ago as Metroidvania, which had the interesting aspect of it is your main character has no ability to attack. They basically summon spirits that fight for them. So
I think I remember this. Yeah.
So when you hit the attack button, instead of your person attacking, instantly a spirit that they have with them like comes in and like does the like attacks with their sword or whatever. And each of as you go through, they're called homunculi, is the spirits that kind of work with your little dude, who is known as a tuner or a tuner. I can't remember which. But but you go through, and as you're finding, you find these homunculi, and they might have, some might be passive, where it's just like one of them is just like a little owl that flies over your shoulder and just attacks anything that gets near you. Some are moves that use moves that are like more like heavy duty attacks, but you have to wait for them to recharge. Some are your basic attacks where it's just like a 3-hit combo or something like that. And one of them is actually one of the ones that you get pretty early is they call it a pressure attack, but basically it's a homunculi spirit that just like shoots a gun constantly as long as you have the button held down. And it does like very little chip damage, but when you keep firing it, it kind of keeps the enemy like pushed back, instead of right up on you. It's a fun game so far. I really liked Ender Lilies. Not like I wasn't overwhelmed with joy by Ender Lilies, but I really liked it. It was a fun Metroidvania. Ender Magnolia is a lot of fun as well. In terms of the story, it's one of those games where I'm really mostly just playing it for the gameplay at this point, because it's a fantasy story. Sometimes it's almost always fantasy, where the story will be like, okay, well, it's just there's too many steps here.
I know. I used to devour that kind of thing, and I'm just too exhausted for it anymore. I start going, okay.
Okay. Skip the cutscene. I'm done. I'm blowing through all the dialogue. I don't have much. I'm like, just let me play it. Just let me play the game, please. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's move on.
Let's move on. Because unless, and I think, it's funny. I think it's a problem associated with me reading more, because I read a lot more now than I used to. I am less patient with stories that are just like not cracking along in terms of being paced well. Well, because we read a lot for Pixel-It, and then I read in between the Pixel-It books as well. So the problem is, I feel like, and maybe this is a hot take, I feel like most video game writing, it really, even games that are considered like the pinnacle of game writing, like Last of Us, it's super tropey, cliche.
Yeah.
I like the TV show because, I enjoy Pedro Pascal. The charisma of the actors in live action is different. There is almost no charisma a lot of times in photorealistic graphics yet. If you want, it's weird, but you want more, you go more cartoonish in terms of graphics, you could actually draw me along better than trying photorealism.
Absolutely. 100%. The handful of games that have actually made me cry, I'm thinking about it, and none of them were photorealistic. The closest one to photorealism would be BioShock Infinite.
Sure.
And that one is still very stylized.
Super stylized. Yeah.
So yeah, no, I totally agree. It's distracting otherwise.
It is a little bit distracting otherwise, living in that uncanny valley. I'm just trying to think of games that might have made me cry my own tears.
No one makes me bleed my own blood.
No one makes me cry my own tears. I don't know. Probably wasn't anything like, maybe last year While We Wait Here had some moments. Nobody Wants to Die had some moments that were pretty sad. Mouth washing.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Wow. The game with the PS1 graphics.
Yeah. No, but that's exactly it.
That's exactly it.
It didn't need to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was just getting on is like most video games that are heralded, especially in the AAA space, as these paragons of writing. I feel are not even necessarily, they don't necessarily even live up to a lot of novels, or TV shows yet. I mean, it's in the long and short of it, writing for video games is still in its infancy. Writing actual narrative in games is still relatively new, and I think we're finding more and more about what works and what doesn't. Mouthwashing, great example of a game that was amazing. Yep, but the flip side of it is Mouthwashing doesn't have a lot of gameplay.
But then on the other hand, because it's a completely different medium, you have games that don't have much in the way of a linear narrative, like Papers, Please, that are incredibly moving.
Exactly.
And it's a different experience, and they don't overwrite it. To go with the same designer,
Papers, Please,
Return of the Obra Dinn.
I was about to say Lucas Pope is 2 for 2 on that,
and I think that's what we're seeing more of, where people are recognizing that the medium is better at its own thing. There are things that a video game can do that a book just can't, and vice versa. That's interesting.
What was the game with the film where you're looking through the film reels?
God, it's a name.
It's a name, all right.
I have it. I never played it. I tried to get through it and I just couldn't.
Begins with an I, doesn't it?
I don't know. Someone's screaming at us right now. Well, the infectious madness.
Immortality.
Immortality. We were thinking about two different games. Okay. I remember. Oh gosh, I'd forgotten all about Immortality. I remember you really liked that one.
Yes.
I was thinking of the one where it's like you're watching interrogation footage of a woman.
It's the same developer.
Is it the same developer?
Okay. Same guy. Her Story is.
Thank you. Yes, Her Story.
Sam Barlow is the guy. So Her Story and Telling Lies. And there's a couple games coming up called. There's a couple games coming up from Sam Barlow. One of which is from him and Brandon Cronenberg.
Oh, okay. I'm listening.
Is Brandon Cronenberg? Okay, yeah, he is the son.
I think he's the one that did. What was that movie? That was
Infinity
really
Pool.
Yeah, that was a good movie.
Yeah, and Possessor.
He's got his dad's eye.
He does.
It's in a jar on a desk.
It's a shame David Lynch was never really approached by any of these people. Even though so much
really interesting.
Even though there's so many things that are clearly inspired by him.
You got Deadly Premonition and
you got Deadly Premonition, Alan Wake,
sure. Yeah.
Control. Silent Hill is super Lynchian.
Oh yeah. There's my wife and I, we realized after he passed how piss poor our watching habits of him are. I'd only ever seen Eraserhead and Blue Velvet. And I a long time watched through Twin Peaks, and Emily hadn't seen any of them. So we watched we watched Eraserhead, we watched Wild at Heart, and we watched Mulholland Drive. And just man, that was a crazy 3 days, let me tell you. But it was wonderful, and I think we're going to do that more with directors. We're going to try and watch a bunch of the directors work in a row.
Do a director, and I feel, I feel like that's actually a great way to do it. Is kind of like what Blank Check does. The podcast Blank Check, where they
I thought you meant the 90s movie.
No, not the 90s. Go on.
Tell me more.
Not the it was another game very inspired by David Lynch is Thimbleweed Park.
Oh, Absolutely. Lynch and the X-Files, basically.
Lynch and the X-Files, yeah. So, yeah, I'm just looking through a list right now of games that are like very Lynch. Disco Elysium has some Lynch vibes. Sure. Kentucky Route Zero, Silent Hill 2 and all that. It's R.I.P. David Lynch. We got to David Lynch from Cronenberg, from Brandon Cronenberg, and we still ended up talking about David Lynch. But anyway, game writing, guys. Game writing. I think a lot of times the things that are held up as the premier examples of writing in games are often not necessarily. They're valued by their closeness or proximity to how close they look to being movies, rather than their strengths as a game.
I totally agree. We got to a point where people wanted very badly for video games to be taken seriously on some level.
Right.
And we've gotten to that point, but now the problem is that they're only being taken seriously by mainstream based, like you said, based on their allusion to existing art forms. Yeah. And it has to break through that. We need more people to play games like Pony Island and, and mouthwashing and all of these brilliant narrative games that could not exist in a book or in a movie or a TV show or something like that to really make the art form stand out.
Yeah. No, I agree. You know what else I agree on is that there's a wonderful website called patreon.com/pixelatpod.
Bet your ass there is.
You go there, you can join us for free. $1 gets you in the door. $5 gets you ad-free episodes and the bonus episode before we start the main part of the episode, and $10 gets your name shouted out in every episode. And to that end, I want to say big hearty thank you to Jesus Loves You, Kyle Seaman, Ruthless Mutter, Middle of Things, Sigma Sal, Chut, Beaks, Dummy, Dick, and Friendly Friend. Thank you for being a friend. Thank you so much for being a friend. Thank you for being a friend. Dun, 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 it took me until this year for James Hot Cider to point out to me that although that is the theme song to Golden Girls, it was a song on its own.
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, it wasn't just it's a song by Andrew Gold. So there's like a longer version of it. It's 4 minutes long.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not going to, I started to say, I think I'll look that up, and then immediately changed my mind. I don't think I'm going to do that.
Maybe you should just watch Golden Girls though.
That's a better use of my time. You know what? For every David Lynch movie, 3 episodes of the Golden Girls. We must stay balanced.
We must stay balanced.
We must stay balanced. Every one of us is teetering on the scale. In one hand, David Lynch's Eraserhead. In the other hand, the Golden Girls. And we've got to keep it balanced, baby.
Yeah. So because I'm just feeling very, very Lynchy. I feel like I need to end this, especially in this episode, especially in an era of Trump and things going less than swell for a lot of folks, especially our trans friends, non-binary friends. This quote from Twin Peaks. I tell all your colleagues, those clown comics, to fix their hearts or die. Rest in peace, David Lynch.
Beautiful man.
Beautiful man. And yeah, that'll be it for tonight's episode.